All right, something many of y'all may not know is that Dual County does not have a jail. There are jail cells, but they won't hire a guard. Dual County spent well over $30,000 to try to hide their crimes just in this last stint. The cost of a public pretender who got paid but didn't do his job. The cost of me being in the prison system. The cost of everyone else involved is quite substantial. Now, when I was arrested, it was multiple police agencies who had told me that it's not their job, they're not allowed to investigate, so on and so forth. Scott DaCosta used every law enforcement agency available and all of these agencies broke the law for Sheriff Scott DaCosta. That includes Garden County. That's the county to the east of Dual County. Scott DaCosta is the sheriff of Dual County, and the sheriff of Garden County used to be Michelle. Now it's former Deputy Ross. When I was arrested at that hotel room in Sydney, Nebraska, I needed to be kept safe from the police so I could turn in the police. Now, for starters, at the very beginning of the video, you get to see that it's the Nebraska State Patrol who is there. They're the ones who arrested me. Then they took me out into the parking lot where Dual County deputies were waiting for me. They handed me over to the Dual County deputies who, well, I'd already been assaulted previously in Scotts Bluff over situations with the Dual County Sheriff's Department. And I wasn't okay with going to the Scotts Bluff jail. Thank goodness, Scotts Bluff said, we don't want him. So Garden County took me. Michelle was not there. By the way, Michelle is no longer the sheriff there. She got busted beating on her girlfriend. Michelle had always been nice to me. When Dual County trumped up charges years ago, and then I had to literally walk from jail all the way back to Dual County, well, I'd already done that several times. But on this particular occasion, and by the way, Michelle was only a deputy at the time, she gave me a ride as far as the border of Garden County and Dual County, which was very much appreciated. She did not have to. Now, I was trying to turn in my predators every step of the way. I never stopped trying to turn in Leslie Snell and Sheriff Scott DaCosta and the deputies here in Dual County. I am still trying to turn them in and still encountering the same roadblocks I always did. You guys aren't going to stick up for somebody who's called mentally ill. And there are lots of people who are going to use that as an excuse to target that person. And you guys are going to talk about it, but you're not going to do anything to stop it. You're not going to do anything to prevent it. Now, those deputies drove me to Garden County because Scotts Bluff didn't want me. Now, it was at this point that I found out that they had already planned on sending me to Lincoln. Scott DaCosta was on the phone with Deputy Ross and explaining to Deputy Ross that I'm going to Lincoln. Also, Deputy Hammond was there explaining to Deputy Ross that they already had a plan for sending me to Lincoln. They just needed somewhere to hold me for a few days. They already knew, they already had it in place that they were going to send me to Lincoln. Already decided. Now, those deputies there in Garden County tried claiming that my autism advocate didn't want to speak to me. They wouldn't allow me to call her. You get 2 calls in Garden County. They only allowed me 1 of them, but at least I got a phone call. Deputy Ross, Deputy Dean, and I believe it's Deputy Seibert all took part in this. They kept on saying things to me like, "Oh, well, you're just a hold. We're holding you for Dual County." I'm trying to turn in the Dual County Sheriff for years. It is a conflict of interest for Sheriff Scott DaCosta to be involved in anything at all regarding me. Only part of this comes from the fact that he committed multiple felonies since 2018. This is not the first time that Sheriff Scott DaCosta of Dual County or his deputies have had me locked up for trying to turn them in. Not even close. I mean, there was the assault by the sheriff here in this town because I was trying to turn him in. Literally, in all of this time, it is nobody's job to investigate Scott DaCosta. And all of the law enforcement agencies that claim that they would, which is a grand total of Amanda Jonas, sorry, Sergeant Jones. Amanda Jonas is a crooked cop in Colorado. See, these guys are part of well, maybe you could call it a fraternity or a brotherhood, but you don't have to be a male to be a part of it. Law enforcement looks out for law enforcement, even if that law enforcement breaks the law. These guys will break the law for each other and have shown time and again that they are willing to do so. Now, while I was there, I had to try to get some attention, not attention for attention's sake, not because I felt lonely, but because what they were doing was illegal and immoral. Now, in the process of doing so, I almost passed out. So I was taken to the hospital in Garden County. And while there was no doctor at the hospital. It was just a nurse, well, a couple of nurses. And Scott DaCosta told those nurses that I was schizophrenic. Scott DaCosta is not a doctor. He cannot make those decisions. But because of that, I was treated like I was schizophrenic by the deputies in Garden County. And then they shipped me from Garden County. By the way, when I almost passed out, there was a lady. I was trying to explain to her, hey, the vehicle is moving, the ambulance is moving. Maybe you shouldn't try to put that needle in my arm. She didn't listen to me. She screwed up and gave me a hematoma. and ultimately decided that I was right. Maybe you should have listened to me before you give me a hematoma. Now, I got her name written down somewhere in my paperwork. I mean, I wrote a lot. I have literally hundreds of kites from the prison. A kite is a kind of like an inmate request form. There's all these things that these folks that I'm calling that I got to call this agency and that agency to get help. There's lots of stuff that they tell me, oh, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. We can't help you because you should have done this, and you should have done this, and you should have done this. Meanwhile, the hundreds and hundreds of kites that I wrote and saved proved that I was trying the whole time. I was illegally prevented from doing so. If I can't get an honest court date because you screwed up on the paperwork, that's not my fault. The fact that I am victimized over your mistake is not just immoral, it's illegal. So then I get sent to Scotts Bluff. And in Scotts Bluff, they want to treat me like I'm schizophrenic. And then they ship me to Lincoln, to the prison from Scotts Bluff. And of course, Scott DaCosta, the very officer that I've been trying to turn in this whole time, all the way since 2018, being ignored by the Nebraska State Patrol. And mind you, what State Patrol Officer William Burr, or Bill Burr, had to say about the situation. He said that Nebraska State Patrol usually calls from a restricted number. And the reason that I hadn't gotten a call from Sergeant Jones, who is supposed to investigate my case, is that they call from a restricted number. Now, I got a phone call today from Nebraska State Patrol Troop E. Sorry, I got the phone call yesterday. And they did not call from a restricted number. They called from their general phone number. Now, after the assault by Scott DaCosta last December, I was finally able to talk to Sergeant Jones briefly, and that phone call is here on my YouTube. And she called from her own office number so that I would have an actual office number. And she said that that was, well, if you guys go back to the video, basically she said it was because of the inability to get a hold of me. And she also kept on making, well, basically a lot of excuses for I should have answered the phone when she called, or, it's my choice whether or not I answer the phone, or things of that nature. The problem is when a cop calls you, even from a restricted number, they only do it once. They don't try to get a hold of you at a later date. Not if you're trying to turn in cops, especially. Now, the hematoma was not a big major deal. Do you know how many times the cops in Garden County Jail assaulted me? None. None of the Garden County deputies assaulted me. None of them. It was the guards at the Scottsbluff jail, Nebraska State Patrol officer, Scott DaCosta, and of course the guards in the prison who took part in repeated assaults against me. When I got to the prison in Lincoln, I went in, they had me change out my clothes and then go upstairs. When I got upstairs, I asked them if I could take a shower. Now we got to sit down and have this whole check in thing. And well, they didn't listen to a damn thing that I had to say. They ignored my medical history. I literally spent the entire time that I was there trying to get them to actually look at my medical history, letting them know, hey, you need to get a hold of these hospitals. There are medical issues here that you are ignoring altogether, outright refusing to take a look at. I'm being denied my medical rights, and you're telling me what? That's right. They were telling me that all of that has to go through Sheriff Scott DaCosta. Meanwhile, I can't contact the Dual County Sheriff's Department. How am I supposed to defend myself in court or contact the people that I'm being told to contact if I am not legally allowed to contact that place because of a court order that was put into place because Leslie Snell lied out her ass? You pretend like I threaten your kids and it makes it magically okay. To this day, not one person has been able to come up with those magical threats against Leslie Snell's kids. To this very day, nobody has been able to show me any threats against registered child molester Robert Warnick. Now, why is it that there is no evidence of me threatening Leslie Snell's kids or threatening Robert Warnick's kids? Because their kids didn't commit any crimes against me. Their kids did not commit any crimes. Leslie Snell committed crimes and then tried to hide behind her kids. Robert Warnick committed crimes and then tried to hide behind his kids. And by illegally preventing me from going to those court dates, Leslie Snell, Robert Warnick, William Barr, and Sheriff Scott DaCosta, as well as his deputies, had to work together. This is called conspiracy. So my first day in the Lincoln Correctional Center, or sorry, I was at the DEC. That's where everybody goes before they decide which prison they're going to ship them off to. Everybody goes to DEC. However, the people there at DEC were fine with ignoring me altogether unless they come up to my cell to make fun of me or pick on me. And there are a very few officers that work there that did not do that. There was one good nurse. His name was Joseph Hall. He actually looked up the stuff that I was telling him. He also was a social worker in Washington State for years. The stuff that I was talking to him about, he caught on to right away. Whereas most of the guards and most of the nurses just wanted to be cruel. Now, on day one, they had it written down before I had ever talked to anybody. There was a lady who had a piece of paper in her hand. Mind you, I barely just got there. And the piece of paper says schizophrenic behaviors on it. Well, excuse me, but saying that you were harmed by police officers is not a schizophrenic behavior. Joe Hall bothered to actually look these things up. It didn't take him long to realize I was telling the truth. There's also Petra Barons. Now, Petra Barons, that's another story for later on. But the fact is, Sheriff Scott DaCosta just kept on going down the line using a technique that I had spoken out about before. William Barr tried pretending like I was schizophrenic. Outright wrote down on my paperwork that I claimed that I was schizophrenic to him. That's because William Barr didn't want to get in trouble for the crimes that he committed. Sheriff Scott DaCosta didn't want to get in trouble for the crimes that he committed. Just like Amanda Jonas in Longmont, Colorado did not want to get in trouble for the crimes that she committed. A police officer cannot diagnose you as schizophrenic. Of course, they do anyway. You have any idea how many homeless people have been diagnosed as schizophrenic by police officers because they were trying to turn in those police officers? A lot. This is a technique that is used extensively across the United States. It's extremely prevalent in Colorado. There is not a single officer in Colorado that does not know that trick because it's effective. The nurses don't want to fight with the cops. They want to believe that the dude with the badge is telling them the truth. They don't bother to verify it. They just write it down because the officer said it and pretend like it's true. Now, I told you guys this from day one. I already knew all of the tricks that they use because I have seen them do these things to homeless people for years. And they're not just used in big cities. They're not just used in Colorado. I mean, here in western Nebraska, most of these areas, we don't have a police force at all. You will not find a police officer in Dual County. There is no police department here. The only law enforcement that we have here is Sheriff Scott DaCosta and his goons. That's it. If there is a crime committed against you by Dual County Sheriff's Department, you have nobody that you can actually go to because it's not the FBI's job. You can go through the literally over 100 calls to the FBI. Every time they told me, hey, you need to call the FBI, that's who I called. When the FBI told me that I needed to call the Nebraska State Patrol, that's who I called. When Nebraska State Patrol said I needed to call the FBI, that's who I called. When the FBI said I needed to call the Nebraska Attorney General's office, that's who I called. When the Nebraska Attorney General's office said I needed to call the FBI, that's who I called. When the Nebraska Attorney General's office told me I needed to call the Nebraska State Patrol, that's who I called. When the Nebraska Attorney General's office told me that I needed to get a hold of Dual County or Dual County Sheriff's Department, that's literally the people that I'm trying to turn in. And I told them that, but I still made the call. Repeatedly on these phone calls, I was told, well, it's not our job. It's not our job. What is your emergency? I stated repeatedly that there were safety issues here in Chapel, Nebraska, because Dual County Sheriff wouldn't do his job. And they tell me, well, that's the only law enforcement we have available. It's not law enforcement. It's not law enforcement. If they're not following the law and they are breaking the law to have people illegally incarcerated, and they're using the civil courts to prevent that person from defending themselves against criminal matters, and you charge them with criminal crimes to prevent them from going to civil court by having them incarcerated, we've got a major issue. I still have my rule book from the jail or from the prison. When you have to get somebody's name on your phone list, you can't make a call until you have someone on your phone list. And that takes at least 10 days. And you have to have their name, their address, and their phone number, or it doesn't happen. I wasn't able to get my public pretender, Robert Harvoy, on my phone list until almost 40 days after I had arrived. Almost 40 days. My autism advocate still was not on my call list when I left. I was locked up for months. 7 of them. Most of that time spent in the Lincoln Correctional Center. The problem with not having a police force is that there is no local law enforcement agency that I can go to. There's also the fact that in a small town like this, chances are pretty good that if there was a police force here, they'd go out drinking with the sheriff's department. They'd be friends with the sheriff's department, just like the Nebraska State Patrol is. These officers repeatedly since 2018 have used the same exact thing, the same exact techniques over and over and over again to protect my predators. Because if my predators that are civilians, like Robert Warnick, end up getting in trouble, it lends an ear to the fact that I've been telling the truth this whole time. It lends an ear to everything else that I've said. I spoke out about Scott DaCosta in 2018, as well as his deputies. I started trying to turn in Scott DaCosta around 4th of July. I'd tried to turn his deputies in earlier than that. And I'd been trying to turn in Scott DaCosta earlier than that, but I was trying to do so differently. I was hoping that he would actually look up the information that he claimed that he was going to look up, and that he would try to make amends for the oh my God, the mistakes he made. The least he could have done is try to do his job after how bad he fucked up. But he didn't. Instead, he tried to cover his own tracks and cover the tracks of the officers who did these immoral things. Now, when I was sent to Garden County, I was trying to turn him in there. But of course, it's the wrong jurisdiction. They can ship me to another jurisdiction to prevent me from turning them in. They can prevent me from getting a hold of the Nebraska State Patrol the whole time I'm locked up. They can prevent me from having envelopes or from having a sufficient amount of envelopes to contact all the people that I need to get a hold of. I mean, literally, just from the stuff that I had to do within a week of being there, I would have needed over 20 envelopes. But they don't give you 20 envelopes. If you got money on your books, you can buy envelopes. Thank goodness they finally dropped the charges at Clearview in Colorado and refunded my bail money. They sent it to my Aunt Mary, and my Aunt Mary sent it to the prison. So the last month that I was there, I was finally able to buy some fucking envelopes. Now they're supposed to allow you to have envelopes. I had open cases, and the guards at the prison did everything that they could to prevent me from being able to use the phone, to prevent me from being able to write the letters that I needed to write, by repeatedly abusing me and then pretending like I'm a bad person. I was not physically assaulted at Garden County Jail. I cannot say the same thing for Deuel County Sheriff's Department. I cannot say the same thing for Scotts Bluff. I cannot say the same thing for Lincoln Correctional Center or DEC. On my first day there, they tried claiming, my first day at the DEC, they tried claiming that I had taken a shower already. When I asked them for a shower, they said, "You took a shower already." I said, "No, I didn't." They said, "No, you took a shower downstairs." I'm like, "No, I didn't." They told me to change out of my own clothes, old clothes, and get into these ones. And that's what I did. I followed instructions. Now, there's stories from the people in LCC. There's a few inmates in there who wanted me to tell their stories, and I'm going to get to that. Not on this video, obviously. But there were a lot of inmates who were aware of what was going on, a lot of inmates who tried to speak up. There was several guards in specific who were just horrible. There were quite a few of them, actually. I mean, Lincoln Correctional Center is grossly understaffed. But Donald Hyatt, even after I was transferred off of his unit, he continually came to the unit that I was on to come harass me, to threaten me, to pick on me, to tease me. And there were other inmates who repeatedly spoke up about it on the spot, screaming at Hyatt, "You need to knock it off. You need to knock it off. You need to leave him alone." No matter how many times I went to those supposed sergeants, I don't know why they give them military ranks. They certainly don't deserve them. But just like in any other situation where you got to deal with law enforcement, they're going to break the law, and their superiors are going to try to cover it for them, just like Scott DaCosta did repeatedly with Jared Hahn, Cody Selhorse, and Jordan Anderson. Over and over and over. I want you to imagine that you've taken 5 years of abuse, much of it at the hands of law enforcement. You have made hundreds of calls. You have called all of the agencies that you are told you have to call, and all of them have told you it's not their job. Then they tell you that you have to go to the very sheriff that you are trying to turn him in. Now, this has happened to me repeatedly. If you guys go back through my YouTube stuff, back to when I was in Washington State the second time with Officer Schneider, when several of my phones, my computers, or one computer and a whole bunch of my USBs full of evidence were stolen in a backpack, well, Officer Schneider was there. Now, I saw this guy walking off, and I noticed my backpack was missing. This guy had asked me if I had a shirt or a jacket or something for him. I told him, as soon as I finish here, I'll get you one. I was making a video at the time. And the guy grabbed my backpack and walked off. Now, I didn't see him grab my backpack and walk off, but when I noticed my backpack was missing, I got up and I saw the dude. He had my backpack on him. He jumped over a fence and then jumped back. Now, I saw two people sitting in a vehicle, and I asked them, I said, hey, did you see a guy go by here with a backpack? They said, yeah, he went that way. So I went that way. I was able to see him as he jumped back over the fence. Now, he didn't know that I couldn't run, and I can't. My legs are screwed up from abuse by the police. My back is screwed up from pre-existing issues as well as assaults by the police. But the guy who stole my backpack didn't have my backpack. And I was able to put on my best poker face and get him to actually walk with me to go talk to that officer. That officer's name ended up being Officer Schneider. He was parked outside of the subway there in Tacoma, Washington. When I was telling Officer Schneider what was going on, he said, well, he doesn't have it now. And then he got in his vehicle and he drove off. Meanwhile, there's two witnesses in a vehicle. And I made sure when I asked them that question, it was so that I knew whether or not those people were willing to be witnesses. It was obvious that they saw it. But if they admitted to it, especially knowing that there was a police officer parked there, well, chances are pretty good that they'd be willing to talk to that officer. That was a bunch of evidence against child molesters and rapists. It was a bunch of evidence of the head games that the Bollingers and their web wingnut friends were playing. But it's magically fine because I have a penis, so it's okay to harm me in that way? No, it's not. Now, I called up the Tacoma Police Department to try to turn in Officer Schneider, and what did they do? They patched me through to Officer Schneider. The same thing that they did here. The FBI eventually come full circle to, hey, you need to talk to your predator. You need to turn in your predator to your predator. In Officer Schneider's situation, I was trying to turn him in for allowing that man who stole my backpack to get away. I never got those USBs back. I didn't get those phones back. I didn't get that computer back, and they were all full of evidence. And then they want to add to the obvious situation that I'm stuck in. I'm surrounded by, well, a pretty screwed up situation, and I've got no way out of there. And then I got to deal with the fact that they're increasing the safety issue by patching me through to the very officer that I'm trying to turn in. Now, mind you, these conversations are recorded on my YouTube channel. They are on this channel. Officer Schneider of the Tacoma Police Department outright broke the law. But when you're homeless, they don't give a fuck. There's also video here on my YouTube channel where I'm walking by a bus stop in Tacoma, just right across the street from where this situation happened. The man is passed out with a heroin needle in his arm. Did any police officers show up to that? No, not a single one. They sent the fire department. The fire department. There is a severe safety issue involved when you want to hot tip the people these guys are trying to turn in. When I'm trying to turn in Officer Schneider, you need to patch me in to somebody from internal affairs or professional standards unit in some places. That's who they should have turned me over to. That is who they should have transferred that call to. Instead, knowing full well that what they were doing was illegal, they patched me through to Officer Schneider, the very officer I was trying to turn in, which prevents a very serious safety risk for me, because police officers across the country kill the homeless and the disabled. More than anyone else, the homeless and the disabled. "22% of those killed by police in 2019 were black. They had a population of around 60 million people in 2019. 22% of those killed by police came from that 60 million population. 49% of those killed by police in 2019 were homeless. The homeless had around 500,000 as their population. That is 1/120th the size of the black population, yet they account for well over double the number of people killed by police in 2019. Second on the list is the disabled, with an equal number. There's about 60 million disabled people, about 60 million black people. 22% of those killed in 2019 by police were black. 51% of those killed by police in 2019 were disabled. Now, some of you are going to try to do your math there and think that, oh, well, 49% plus 51% is 100%. And then you add the 22% because of black people. Hey, wait a second. That's 122%. Let's get down to the actual reality of those numbers. You can be homeless, disabled, and black all at the same time. You can be disabled and homeless at the same time, but not black. You can be disabled and black, but not be homeless. You seeing where this is going? Over and over and over and over, they change the rules. Well, I got to call this department or I got to call that department. No, you have to come in person. I go in person. No, this is the wrong department, or you got to schedule an appointment, or you got to call these people, or you got to call those people. Meanwhile, all they were interested in was covering their own asses and the asses of their fellow officers. When it comes to Waylon Lolatai, one thing that many of y'all want to throw at me is not all cops are bad. Bullshit. Bullshit. Are the good cops doing anything about the bad cops? No. Not unless they are pressured to by the media and the public. If the media and the public do not pressure the cops to do something about the bad cops and push for a warrant, those cops ain't going to do shit. I was told repeatedly that I couldn't turn in my crimes because it was out of jurisdiction, that I couldn't turn in the assault by Waylon Lolatai to the Longmont Police Department. Why? Because it's out of jurisdiction. Meanwhile, when there was a situation with Zaid Atkinson that happened in Boulder, Colorado, who was it that it was turned over to? Longmont. Longmont. The very same people, one of the very same people, or group of people, I should say. Longmont. I can't go to the cops in Longmont about the situation to turn it in because why? Because it's out of jurisdiction. But they can do that for Zaid Atkinson. I can't turn in any of my predators actually in the jurisdiction that they're in because the cops will pretend that it's out of jurisdiction. How screwed up is that? Meanwhile, police coordinated and worked together across the state of Colorado to threaten, harass, and intimidate me everywhere that I went, and to threaten, harass, and intimidate everyone who tried to help me. Across jurisdictional borders, which makes it federal crimes. The harassment by these people that I had to deal with was not just across multiple jurisdictions and multiple states, but multiple countries. I was treated like I was making it up. Even with all of this evidence that still exists, I have to find someone who will actually fucking look at it. None of these counties, none of these jails should be allowed to take somebody in under the situations that they did. I never should have been sent to number one, Garden County. And although they did not physically abuse me, they did break the law. Then there's Scotts Bluff, where they did physically assault me repeatedly. And then there's DEC and LCC, both prisons, by the way. And I was assaulted repeatedly in both of those places. Meanwhile, I never should have been sent to any of them. Don't get me wrong, I've broken the law, but I also admit it. I admitted where I broke the law. And no, breaking the law is not wrong. There are situations where your activities are wrong, and there are situations where your activities are right. It's wrong to murder somebody, but it is not wrong to defend yourself. Now, I went out of my way not to defend myself against my predators because I didn't want to get arrested for defending myself. And I'm not talking about defending myself to the point of actually killing somebody. I'm not even talking about defending myself to the point of preventing my attacker from attacking me again, what I got to do is roll up into a ball and just take it. And even when I just take it, like I did with Robert Warnick, who chased me down after threatening to kill me on multiple occasions, chased me down. I was on foot. He got into his vehicle and chased me down and assaulted me. I threw no punches at him. I threw no kicks at him. I wonder how acting Garden County Sheriff Ross feels about the fact that his actions helped a child molester like Robert Warnick get away scot-free. There was quite a few guards in the Scottsbluff jail who told me often and frequently that I should not be there, that they think that it's horrible what I've gone through. Now, I do have to take the time here to say thank you to several of the officers who work there in Scottsbluff. I just got to. One of them is I want to say deputy, but it would be Herrera. Miss Herrera, there was a situation with Jen Beebe. She used to work at Region 1. Now she's a guard at the Scottsbluff jail. Miss Herrera did not treat me very well. But afterwards, she apologized. She admitted that she screwed up. She admitted that it was wrong of her to do that. She said she was having a bad day and she should not have taken it out on me. Herrera, thank you. By the way, Herrera treated me like a human being from there on in. There's also Lauderdale. Deputy Lauderdale, or Miss Lauderdale, she tried to break my fingers. I still have problems from that. Do I want to press charges against her? Actually, no. I did at the time. She was literally trying to break my fingers because she didn't want the opinion of her boss if she wasn't able to do this task on her own. And I was telling her, you need to get your boss. So she tried to break my fingers. And then when her boss showed up, he didn't listen to a thing I had to say. He just tased me. But here's the thing about Lauderdale. Just like Herrera, Lauderdale admitted that she screwed up. She apologized. She actually bought me a couple of books. And she apologized more than once. She also knows my niece's daddy, Riley. The morning of the day that they had let me out, she was going to try to get a hold of Riley and let him know what was going on. Because chances are pretty good that he wasn't going to know that I was in there. And later that day, I found out I was getting released. Thank goodness. But most of the deputies in there in the jail were busy trying to hide the crimes that they committed. All right, here's this guy over on the chat on the side, calls himself Rich Life of Tax Fraud. He also has a profile called Rich Life of Ativan and another one called Rich Life of Tylenol. Normally I take pictures of these, but it's just as easy. I've already got evidence of this same dude doing this stuff over and over again. I'm just going to hide user on this channel. So he's going to have to make another account. Now, one of the things with Riley, I had tried explaining to him the situation with the Dual County Sheriff's Department and with being assaulted by Robert Warnick. And Riley knows that I have martial arts experience. I took Duke's Runin Jitsu, I took karate, I took Taekwondo. Taekwondo is pretty much useless. They don't really teach it as a self-defense thing. They just coin it as a self-defense thing. Really, what they're teaching is competition Taekwondo. That's so that you can go to a tournament and win a trophy for your dojo. The same thing with karate. But ninjutsu, they teach you how to immobilize or kill your opponent. Now, I am afraid that if somebody attacks me and I defend myself, that I could cause them permanent damage. Someone called Lisa Owns You typed, did Irene start that on you? Lisa Owns You, would you elaborate? I don't know who Irene is. I do say a lot. I know that a lot of you guys do get annoyed with that. I also have long pauses. If I don't say and have those long pauses, I end up stuttering. And there's a few videos where you can catch me stuttering. I almost stuttered there. Lisa Owns You typed. Irene was talking about Chris. Chris who? Chris who, Lisa? She typed, he took over the portal for benzos. This is probably another profile from Rich Life of Tax Fraud. So out comes my phone. Take a picture. And then we will go over to the side here and hide user on this channel. You see how easy that is. I can't do that in real life. See, I just deleted, looks like she put in one extra message. So 4 messages overall from Lisa Owns You. 4 of them overall. And I was able to hide user from this channel. So I don't have to deal with Rich Life of Tax Fraud until he makes another profile, which will probably be in just a few minutes. And I don't have to listen to Lisa Owns You. But how do you do that in real life? When somebody's harassing you on the internet, you can block them. When someone is harassing you up in your face, in real life, that's a different story. There is no block button. There is no delete message button. There is no hide user from this channel button. They're there in real life, and you just got to deal with it. Ah, Mike Boudet. This is one of them that is going to get blocked immediately. However, one of the options here is to view deleted message. I'll take a picture of that. Mike Boudet has had a thing on called Sword and Scale. Episodes 109 and 110 are dedicated to outright lies over and over and over again. He did everything that he could to protect Natalie's actual predators and to try to use keywords to try to make it sound as if everything that I was showing must be a lie and everything that Tim was showing must be the truth. Except that Tim was not telling the truth. Whereas I never had sex with Natalie, Tim did. When she was underage, he stole her dog. He held her down and screamed in her face, told her she could have her dog back when she came back to him. When I was in Virginia on more than one occasion, when Natalie really wanted to hang out with me, she couldn't because she was dealing with Tim Beeson, calling her up and saying he was going to blow his head off because he couldn't have her vagina anymore. Now, sure, saying it's because he couldn't have her vagina anymore is an oversimplification. But Mike Boudet here did everything that he could to make me a target for the American public. One of many of these web sleuth groups full of people who get off on this. Now, another thing about Mike Boudet, he actually lost Sword and Scale because well, he hates women. There are 3 groups that he hates with a passion. That'd be the homeless, those called mentally ill, and women. Let's see. Someone calling themselves Beggar Crybaby typed, "I'm gonna take your airsoft guns and call mental health on you." And then he typed, "I'm in your shed." And then he typed 666. I'm taking a screenshot of this now. Sorry, not a screenshot, an actual photograph. Here you go. Oh, he's deleting his messages. Sorry, bud. You only got one message deleted before I was able to take a picture of it. And hide user on this channel. Bam! Now, wouldn't it be nice if I could do that in real life? If I could just click a magic button and never have to worry about Sheriff DaCosta again. If I could press a magic button and magically Robert Warnick will never, ever threaten me again. A magic button where he will never assault me again. The thing is, there is no magical button. There is no magical button. There just isn't one. And I'm pretty sure that, well, a trigger is not going to do any better. My BB guns, although they may hold somebody off for a few seconds, it's really just going to piss somebody off. And then they're going to have a bunch of adrenaline going through them. And somebody with adrenaline hits a lot harder than somebody who doesn't have adrenaline going through them. If somebody already has adrenaline going through them and you piss them off by giving them welts with a BB gun, they've got even more adrenaline going through them. They might beat you to death on accident. So just don't point guns at people, even if it's just a BB gun. What good are my BB guns going to do me against people who have actual guns? If I pull my BB guns out and point them at one of the sheriff's deputies, they have real guns. So the BB gun isn't going to do any good. If Leslie Snell's husband decides to come and shoot me in the head, first of all, I'm not going to be walking around town with a BB gun or a real gun, which means that if he decides he's going to come shoot me in the head, and he does have guns, mind you, if he decides he wants to come shoot me in the head, there's nothing I can do about it. That's the problem with a lot of people talking about what they're going to do, what they're going to do, what they're going to do. I've heard so many people say, man, if somebody pulled a gun on me, I'd do this and this and this and this. Man, most of y'all would just piss your pants. I don't like what guns are used for. I do like the mechanics of them. I love how things work. Ah, now we have someone impersonating an officer. We'll take a picture of this. Blam. This one calls himself Homeless Cray Cray, typed takes another screenshot while you defame someone that can actually sue you, dummy. And then he typed, tell us about your ninja skills. And then someone calling themselves Scott DaCosta typed, I own you, boy. And then he typed, give me my Ativan. And then he typed, use your telekinesis. Who does this sound like, folks? Does this sound like Rich Life of Tax Fraud, aka Rich Life of Ativan, aka Rich Life of Tylenol? It certainly does. Let's see. And then Homeless Cray Cray typed Sean is selling drugs, question mark. And then Scott DaCosta typed he sold Irene Ativan in Minecraft. And then Homeless Cray Cray typed LOL, he loves pictures. And then Scott DaCosta typed I'm his brother. And then Scott DaCosta typed they're going to take your evidence. And then Homeless Cray Cray typed seriously. And then Homeless Cray Cray typed listen to Sword and Scale. Lovely. But there's a magic trick. See, unlike the real Scott DaCosta in real life, I can press magic buttons here and let's see, Homeless Cray Cray is now hidden on my channel, and this person who is impersonating an officer is also hidden from my channel. Now, a lot of you guys say, just get off the internet, just get off the internet. I'm going to tell you something. I can block the people on the internet. How am I going to block when I'm on foot in Chapel, Nebraska? How am I going to block a 1,400-pound vehicle? It just doesn't work. Another thing is, a lot of folks want to tell me to do things that are as far fetched and as far away from reality as it can possibly get. I don't go walking around with my BB guns, despite the fact that they got bright orange tips on them, because you can only see those bright orange tips from certain angles. There's also the fact that there are people in town looking for any excuse, and they tell me frequently that they're looking for any excuse. Now, have they told me frequently since I've been released? No, I hardly go anywhere. If I don't go outside, I don't have to deal with people assaulting me outside. If they come into my friend's house, then the make my day law comes into effect. If anyone here knows what the make my day law is, it means if somebody breaks into my domicile, I can operate under the assumption that they're trying to kill me, and I can literally kill them as long as they are within the household. Now, here's the thing, I'm not willing to kill people. I am not willing to kill people. Also, a BB gun is not going to do the job. Are my BB guns loaded? Well, hell yes, they are. But they fire BBs. See, Mr. Personal Responsibility type Sean Avid is a literal ninja. No, I'm not. I took Duke's Rue Ninjutsu, which means I was trained in a martial art. I wasn't in it nearly as long as my older brother was. I didn't learn a whole heck of a lot, but also I've got a pretty high IQ. I had a pretty good understanding of how the body worked back then, and I've got a pretty good understanding of how the body works now. A lot of the stuff that I'm able to do, a lot of the stuff that I've used in fights, it's not stuff that I learned in ninjutsu. It's stuff that I learned from getting my ass kicked. People used stuff on me that worked, and I remembered it because it worked. Mr. Personal Responsibility type Sean is the Chuck Norris of homeless disabled people. I'm really not. I am not a fighter. I'm not any good at fighting. I'm lucky. I have a big nose. Literally, that is the biggest chunk of luck that I could possibly have as far as fights go. People see how big my nose is, and that's the first thing that they aim for. And then when I flinch, they bust their knuckle on my head. Now, my brother in law, Riley, when I told him about the assault by Robert Warnick, he wanted to tell me, man, you should have used your martial arts skills. You should have this. You should have that. You should have protected yourself. It's self defense. You should have beaten the shit out of Robert Warnick and then explained that it was self defense. And I had to explain to Riley, hey, Riley, I've been trying to explain to you, my back is screwed up. My legs are screwed up. My wrists are screwed up. You know, it's fine to try these things when you're capable and able, but when you're not able, trying to do so is a bad idea. Like if someone says, hey, you could run away from all your problems, you just have to run. If someone said, hey, if you can get from one end of the block to the other end of the block in 45 seconds or less, you can go. If you can't do it, we're going to shoot you in the head. You know what I would do? I would stand there and let them shoot me in the head because I'm not going to die tired. I can't run. I also hear a vehicle. One moment. Just somebody driving by. Now, Riley had some good intentions, and the ideas that he had were based on information that he knew about me. He knew that I had taken Dukes-ryu ninjutsu. He knew that my older brother had taken Dukes-ryu ninjutsu. What he didn't understand was the full extent of my injuries. When I went to him for help, he was too busy giving advice to hear what was going on. Now, he's not a bad person. Not to me, anyway. He just didn't understand. Many of these people who offered to help me didn't understand what was going on. When they said that they would go in with me, that literally meant they needed to go in with me in person to talk to these police officers, to these different agencies. Otherwise, they're going to give me the mentally ill treatment, which, by the way, is how they treat most homeless people. If you're a pretty girl, they will probably give you leeway. There were several occasions where women went down and broke the law in Boulder, Colorado, blatantly, to the point that people were actually calling the cops. And then when the cops showed up, they literally did everything that they could to ignore that female and arrested somebody else instead. There was a homeless old man that they arrested when Crystal Beauchamp assaulted me. The first time that she assaulted me, not the second one. The first time that Crystal Beauchamp showed up and assaulted me, it was a pretty screwed up situation. And people were, of course, making fun of me because here I am. I got this girl who's trying to claw my head off and punching me and hitting me and kicking me and all sorts of stuff. She broke all of the claws off of her left hand. Yeah, I know I should say nails, but at the time she was a monster and I was bleeding. Now, there was a woman who was going by who called 911 and said, "Hey, there's this woman who's assaulting this guy. He's not doing anything. He's just backing up and backing up and backing up. And this girl with pink hair is is literally assaulting him. She's scratching him in the head and hitting him and kicking him." And so the cops showed up, and Crystal Beauchamp wants to start complaining to the cops, claiming that I had said something that, see, she showed up to a group that I was sitting in where nobody liked her. And somebody talked shit, and she chose me as her victim. So then she's trying to turn herself into the cops. She's literally admitting that she was assaulting me and trying to get the cops to arrest me because she assaulted me. Meanwhile, the lady who called it in was calling her in to have her arrested or removed from the situation. But the cops didn't want to do that. Instead, they trumped up charges on a homeless man, an old homeless man, just so they didn't have to deal with Crystal. Let's see. Mr. Personal Responsibility typed a fighter and defender of victims with no homes or personal responsibility everywhere. Well, sadly, Mr. Personal Responsibility, we all have personal responsibility, whether we're homeless or not. Mr. Personal Responsibility typed, Sean in no way understands sarcasm. Listen to Sword and Scale. Actually, I'm avid in sarcasm. I'm quite sarcastic myself. Then again, it's pretty important to hear somebody's tone of voice, which you don't get in typing. I am smoking up, Mr. Personal Responsibility. He typed smoke up because he heard me using my lighter. At least he's got some deductive reasoning skills, but not much. He types why hide. Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of abuse that I got to deal with that I shouldn't have to. And the guy who I'm staying with, he also doesn't deserve that shit. You should listen to Sword and Scale. And then you should go back through the evidence here on YouTube and on my Facebook. It won't take you long to realize that Mike Boudette's a lying piece of shit. He sold a narrative to try to increase his ratings. This is why we have no actual news in the United States. People don't want to post up the truth. They want to post up whatever will get people looking because they get more money. The more viewers, the more money. The more money, the more crap that they can buy that they don't fucking need. Mr. Personal Responsibility typed, who are these people that let you keep leeching off of them? Or do you sell them drugs in exchange for a place to stay? Y'all know where this is going. I have never sold drugs ever my entire life. Ever. I don't do drugs. I occasionally smoke pot. Pot is illegal in the state of Nebraska, but not in the state of Colorado, not in the state of Washington. Guess how much pot I have on me? None. I have zero pot. I have zero pipes. And Mr. Personal Responsibility gets the hide user on this channel treatment. Pretty easy. Now, I've made this point before. My problem is not with people on the internet. My problem is with people in real life. There's also the fact that I have to worry that most of these people are severely deranged. They are severely screwed up in the head. And I do have to worry about the possibility of these internet nut jobs who are threatening my life or harassing me. I have to worry about the very real possibility that these people may actually do these things that they're claiming they're going to do. Just yesterday, I had to deal with people trying to give out personal information of people that I know. Now, not all of these people have been good to me all the time. But just like when people are threatening my friends and family, I still got to speak up. I still have to at least try to let these people know. I spoke with a man in town yesterday. He knows Tom Paine. He also knows Tom Paine's daughter and Tom Paine's ex. He didn't have anything nice to say about Tom Paine's ex, for good reason. He didn't have anything nice to say about Tom Paine's daughter, for good reason. After what these women did to the man, it's perfectly understandable. But he doesn't have anything bad to say about Tom. I don't have anything bad to say about Tom. Don't get me wrong, the man's made mistakes, but so have I. Anyway, it's almost 7 o'clock in the morning here. The gas station's open, so I can go get some coffee and something to eat. Ah, Burger Boy is on. Hey, Burger Boy. He typed good morning. This situation is incredibly complicated, and explaining things on the internet is a far cry from showing all of the evidence. I would love to be able to just post every single conversation that I have recorded. I would love to post them all up on my YouTube channel here. But if I did, my YouTube channel would get taken away. Burger Boy typed, "Hello, sir. Best wishes for your day ahead despite the struggles." Well, thank you, Mr. Burger Boy. Um, I just recently found out that you have to click an option before you make the video. Otherwise, when you go back to watch the video, it doesn't show the live chat that happened while the video was going. So, for party yesterday and today, um, I've been doing that so that later on these things can be looked at. Now we got someone with M Boudet. See, every time that I block them, they create another profile and go at it again. Lovely. I don't know if you guys heard the camera click, but I did click it. M Boudet typed, "So you said you don't sell or do drugs, but you do smoke pot. Do you sell pot in exchange for a place to stay?" No, I don't. I'm disabled, dude. Disabled. I get disability money. And although my disability money is currently in limbo, there's the money that was on my card from when I was incarcerated that I've been living on. I've never sold pot. I've never sold Tylenol. I've never sold Ativan. And then M. Boudet types, "Because who would let you in their home? You get disability money and still complain." You know, disability money does not stop people from assaulting me. But guess what? Oh, he types, "You take jujitsu classes with that money, huh?" Nope. I tried a couple of classes of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. M. Boudet is now deleted from my hidden from my channel. He can't comment again. He can't harass me again. M. Boudet is obviously a play on Mike Boudet. So we got people here pretending to be Mike Boudet. We got people here pretending to be Sheriff Scott DaCosta. Boy, oh boy, ain't we having fun today? Anyway, I'm going to end this channel. We've gone quite a bit off track, so it's probably a good time to end the stream and go get myself some breakfast. Hopefully, when I go to get my breakfast, I don't encounter any of the predators that I have to deal with in this town. Because unlike all of these people who I clicked the magic option on here so that I don't have to deal with them on here, in real life, there is not one of those magic buttons. In real life, your ideas don't work for my situation. There's lots of people that offered to give me firearms And I told them no. There are lots of people who said, well, you should go shoot this person and you should go shoot that person. Well, that doesn't do me any good. That doesn't do anyone else any good. There's people like Riley who told me that I should have beaten up Robert Warnick for assaulting me. That's a great idea, except for the fact that Dual County Sheriff's Department literally does everything they can to cover up the crimes of my predators, including Leslie Snell and Robert Warnick. If I had defended myself, they'd have locked me up for assault. I did not defend myself. I just took the assault. But Robert Warnick was, well, assaulting me is a felony. It is a felony to physically assault a disabled person. A felony. However, Robert Warnick is still free. Burger Boy type, have a good breakfast. See you next stream. Be safe, Burger Boy.